Imagine a creature 40 feet tall, weighing over 100,000 pounds, strong enough to snap a tree in half with a single sideways stick, tall enough to look into a fourth-floor window without even straining its neck. Now imagine that same creature standing next to you, and never, not once, considering you a meal. This is Brachiosaurus, one of the largest land animals to ever walk the earth. It had the size to crush almost anything in its path. It had zero interest in doing so, and zero ability to hunt even if it wanted to. So why would evolution build something this massive, this powerful, and this completely harmless by design? Here's why the biggest dinosaurs were often the least dangerous ones, and what that says about how nature actually builds its giants. 1. Its teeth were built for leaves, not flesh. Open a T-Rex's mouth, and you'll find blade-like serrated teeth engineered for one job, slicing through muscle and crushing bone in a single bite. Everything about that mouth is a weapon. Open a Brachiosaurus's mouth, and you'll find something closer to a garden rake, a row of small, peg-shaped, spoon-like teeth. There's no serration, no cutting edge, no grip strong enough to hold on to struggling prey. These teeth weren't made for killing. They were made for one specific motion, over and over, closing around a branch and stripping every leaf off it in a single pull. A Brachiosaurus didn't choose not to eat meat the way a person might choose vegetarianism. It physically could not have processed it even if it wanted to. Its entire mouth was hardware built for foliage and nothing else. 2. Its body was a tank, not a hunter. Speed and agility win fights in the animal kingdom. Brachiosaurus had almost none of either. It stood on 4 thick pillar-like legs, more like the support columns of a bridge than the legs of a hunter. Its body plan prioritized bearing enormous weight over land, not bursts of acceleration. There were no claws built for grabbing, no flexible spine built for sudden turns, no explosive first step to close a gap on fleeing prey. A hunting predator needs to cover 30 feet in a couple of seconds. A Brachiosaurus needed several seconds just to fully turn its body around. In a world where predators live and die by speed, this animal simply wasn't built to compete in that arena, and it didn't need to. 3. That iconic neck wasn't a weapon. It was a grocery list. The single most recognizable feature of Brachiosaurus, that impossibly long neck, had nothing to do with combat. It was a feeding tool, and one of the most efficient ones evolution ever produced. By reaching high into the tree canopy, Brachiosaurus could access an entire vertical layer of food that most other herbivores on the ground simply couldn't touch. While shorter dinosaurs competed fiercely for the same low-growing plants, Brachiosaurus quietly had an entire buffet to itself, several meters above everyone else's heads. Evolution didn't build that neck to intimidate or strike. It built it to solve a very different problem. How do you feed an animal this enormous without starving, in a world full of competition for the easy-to-reach food? The answer was to simply grow taller than the competition. 4. Its stomach was the size of a room. And that's the real giveaway. Here's the detail that seals the case entirely. Plant matter is difficult to digest and relatively low in energy per bite compared to meat. To survive on greenery alone in the quantities an animal this size would need, Brachiosaurus required a gut so massive it functioned almost like an internal fermentation chamber, slowly breaking down tons of tough, fibrous plant material every single day. That kind of digestive system takes up an enormous amount of internal space, and that space has to come from somewhere. You cannot build an animal with a stomach that size and also give it the compact, muscular, hunting-optimized anatomy of a predator. The two body plans are fundamentally incompatible. Evolution had to choose one design or the other. Brachiosaurus went all in on the salad bar, and its entire internal anatomy reflects that single-minded commitment. 5. Size itself was the only weapon it ever needed. Here's the twist that makes this whole story make sense. Brachiosaurus didn't need to be a predator to be effectively untouchable. At full adult size, almost nothing on Earth could seriously threaten it. No teeth required. No claws required. No venom, no speed, no strategy, just raw, overwhelming scale. A predator looking to attack a fully grown Brachiosaurus wasn't just risking failure. It was risking being crushed by an animal that likely didn't even notice the attempt. In other words, evolution had already solved Brachiosaurus's safety problem before it ever needed teeth or claws. Being enormous was itself a complete defense system, freeing up its entire body to specialize in something else, eating as efficiently and as much as physically possible. 6. This is actually a recurring pattern in nature. Your Brachiosaurus isn't some strange outlier. It's an extreme example of a pattern seen throughout the animal kingdom then and now. The largest herbivores tend to trade or fence for pure scale, while smaller, faster animals evolve the claws, teeth, and speed needed to actually hunt. Modern elephants follow the same basic logic. Blue whales, the largest animals to ever exist, feed on some of the smallest organisms on the planet, filtering enormous volumes of water rather than chasing anything down. Across millions of years and completely different environments, evolution keeps arriving at the same conclusion. Past a certain size, being dangerous stops being necessary. Being unstoppable is enough. 7. Growing this big wasn't easy, and that's part of the story too. Reaching that size wasn't instant, and it wasn't free. A newborn Brachiosaurus likely hatched from an egg not much bigger than a basketball, meaning it had to grow to tens of thousands of times its birth weight over the course of its life. During those early smaller years, before its size became a defense in itself, it would have been genuinely vulnerable to predators. That vulnerability is likely one reason many long-necked giants are thought to have grown unusually fast for their size. Packing on enormous amounts of bone and mass in a relatively short window of time, the faster it could outgrow the danger zone, the sooner that single, simple defense, being too big to bother with, could kick in. Size wasn't just the end result, it was a race against time. The next time you picture Brachiosaurus as some slow, harmless background giant in a dinosaur documentary, remember this: every single part of its body, the teeth, the legs, the neck, the gut, was a highly specialized tool engineered for exactly one purpose: eating plants on a scale almost nothing else on the planet could match. It didn't need to be a killer. It didn't need claws, speed, or a single sharp tooth. It just needed to be too big for anything to matter. If this blew your mind, like the video and subscribe for more surprising dinosaur science. And drop a comment. Which dinosaur should we break down next? Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.